4 minutes of background. First, I wanted to thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your interest in ARISS. I was licensed in 1970 as a novice, and of course went up to general and advanced, and I put off the extra until I heard that the code was going away, and I said, code's easier than theory. I'm gonna have to get this extra before the code goes away. So I did get my extra at that point. I got the XDC. I've done a lot of UHF and BHS serious contesting, sideband CW. One of my favorite things is when Aurora is hanging around and trying to see what on VHF can be heard during Aurora. It's a fascinating thing. I've done a touch of meteor scatter, done tower work. I have a wonderful climbing belt with VHF and UHF antennas. I could handle tower work. Now I'm in a condo, so that means mostly the weekly ARES net and field day. And I was at ARRL headquarters for 24 years. The last stint was as the manager of field organization and education department. I had 15 staffers, a mix of about 18 programs. As you can imagine, field organization and education related, but also there was a mix of weird things thrown in, like the FCC rules desk, affiliated clubs, scouts, and of course ARISS, and a bunch of other things. I've written a number of K1STO articles, done a couple of product reviews. In 2005, my sister said, Rosalie, you need to move back to Indiana and help take care of mother. And she passed away at 101 in February. So it was a good long life, but I took a job working with authors and was the manager of our small family farm, which is about an hour and a half from here. And ARRL asked me to continue to work with ARISS. I co-owned a small electronics company. I'm a pilot, although I'm not currently flying. When I can eke out spare minutes, I like to do bicycling, although I haven't done anything over 20 miles in a trip nowadays. I like day hiking, but of course there's never enough time. My ARISS background started with SARX, the Shuttle Amateur Radio Experiment, and slowly but surely over those years, I gained all my knowledge that I have about amateur radio on the space station. And as Dan said, this will be a little bit shorter session. I have an early first thing tomorrow morning, a doctor's appointment, and of course here it's already after 9 o'clock. But again, thank you for your interest, and I'll go to the next slide. This is basically a report that we do for NASA every quarter. And this particular chart talks about the 20 years of continuous amateur radio on ISS, and talks a little bit about some of the things we did to commemorate starting last November through this coming November. You can see on the bottom right, the first ever crew opened the door to be inhabiting the ISS on November 2nd, 2000. They, of course, had to adjust to microgravity and throw up and get sick and all that stuff for a while. But one of the first things they did was set up the ham station. And so within 11 days time, the first test of the ARISS equipment was done. And on the 21st of December was the very first ARISS contact. So we did a commemoration of our SSTV session. And you can see the award that was made available. Anybody who downloads the SSTV pictures, which are downlinked by the crew, can apply for an award, and they're usually pretty nice awards. And there were club talks and education conference talks about for 20 years. And this number you see at the bottom, school contact supported in 20 years, has been 1,344. And I'm pretty sure that was as of today's contact too. We always talk about our recent accomplishments. We have an ARISS radio experimenters kit, which is being beta tested by 5 schools. It was sent to them last November. They had a tough time because of COVID, not being able to work with the kids. But 2 of the teachers have said that they've already started working with the kits. And you can see over here that there's electronic kits. There's what we call ARISS Pi, which is a Raspberry Pi, code things, all kinds of lessons that go with it. And then there's always awards that we like to brag about that our volunteers have won, some teacher awards and student awards, sometimes scholarships and such. And then we talk about recent things that we've done, and this one it spells out the last SSTV sessions that were handled. You can see the kinds of numbers we get. In January, on a 2-day one, there were 645 people who downloaded and posted 1,887 images. So you can see that it's very popular. We were amazed at how popular it's still. Every session we do is very popular. We did one in June that had almost 12,000 images downloaded, and those were amateur radio on kind of another one of our commemorative ones. Talk about amateur radio on space shuttle and ISS. But educators like to use it with their kids. Space enthusiasts like to download them. Hams, general public shortwave listeners. We've got it so that you can use a software-defined radio or the phone, practically anything, hams, figure out a way to download those images. And last year we discovered that our teachers really enjoyed the balloon launches, and a couple of our teachers on our education committee, we have an ARISS US education committee, set up lesson plans on our website, and they really like it because they say you can tie in so many different disciplines, and we get some publicity from it too. The next 3 slides I'm going to go through pretty quick. They just show that we give talks at education conferences, and it's mostly done by our US ARISS Education Committee. We do them. They get their kids, especially during COVID and virtual conventions and handfests, that they brought their kids with them online to present about things they're doing. So these are just a few of the ones that happened in January, February, March. You can see this orange spacesuit that some kids designed. You can see that little handheld radio up in the pocket. That's a must-have in a spacesuit, according to the students. And this is just general public type hamfest club talks, like tonight's. This will go on our chart for the next quarterly report with the Rat Pack talk. And let's see here, what's next? So a little bit about the hardware. This is not my area of expertise, although I listen and learn. I can't say that I do much beyond that. Occasionally have an idea, but of course you all know our new radio was launched last year. That was the SpaceX launch up in the right-hand corner. This is the Kenwood radio and the ARISS AMSET built custom power supply that Mr. Kerry Banky, who comes here to this gathering, is responsible for, thankfully for us. Otherwise, we don't know what we do. But astronaut Chris Cassidy first installed the radio, set it up in September of last year, and it was employed for the very first ARISS contact on September 10th. And of course, as probably a lot of you know, we don't just do school contacts. We have a radio that's operational 24/7 every day. We switch about every 30 days between UHF and VHF voice repeater and packet. And of course, we have our SSTV, and thousands of amateur operators engage with it. We did some research one year, I think it was 4 years ago, 3 years ago. 80,000 packets went through the ARISS packet system. We couldn't believe it. We just never really thought to find out how many. And it was like, oh my gosh, it's really, really popular. I mean, I guess it is kind of fun that, at a party to say, oh, by the way, I sent my ham radio signal up through the space station and got an acknowledgement back. Yeah, I do that every few days. So students and educators love the SSTV links. As I said before, we've got comments from 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds. A lot of college students really enjoy it, and college faculty. Let's see, the bottom part shows the Chris Cassidy operating the radio. And you can see he's got a little computer monitor by him. We do uplink the questions that the kids are going to ask, because sometimes they speak very softly, they're scared to death. They want to do a great job for their school. They don't want to make a mistake, and they're nervous. And so sometimes they don't speak right up, even though we practice with them on radios and everything. So he does have a cheat sheet. And of course, sometimes the kids have quite an accent because there's schools all over the world. So we have 4 flight spare units that are all built. Thanks a huge part to Carrie. 8 of the 11, and this is probably a little bit out of date. This is the last quarterly report, and as I said, I'm working on this quarterly report. So the 6 of the crew training units and 1 of the ground training units. So you can see that the crew does use it. This middle picture shows Suichi Noguchi listening in during a Japanese radio contact that's being handled. He was not assigned to that, although he could have, but he listened in, and he did make a comment to the students, and he told them something about he was really happy that they were able to be on the contact. You probably all heard about the problem we had in January with the radio not operating. There's a European Space Agency Airbus back porch. I call it back porch. It's called the External Payload Platform System. And it's on Columbus, and it's like a porch that's stuck on the outside, and it's for commercial RF payloads, and there's lots of cabling. And on January 27th, they had a spacewalk. I'm sorry, my abbreviation EVA. That's extravehicular. I don't know what the A stands for. Anyway, it means spacewalk. And NASA, they have to have all their acronyms.
Activity.
Thank you, activity. So they were commissioning the platform and changing all the cables around and switching switches and everything. And they had replaced our old cable with their new cable, which they built. They weren't even going to deal with us. It was kind of like David and Goliath. Oh, go away, little group. We're not going to do anything to this platform was going to cover up our system. And they were just going to, it was just too bad, too bad. Well, of course, we got on NASA's case, who got on ESA's case, and everybody got on Airbus's case. And finally, Airbus agreed to build their own, to build the cable that they told us we would have to build if we wanted to be able to operate our system. And we fought with them and said, we don't have the laboratory to build that cable in. We don't have the $150 glue it takes to put together the gator clamp, which is the clamp that holds everything on to the outside of the space station. We said, we don't have, all that stuff has to be done under a certain temperature and everything. And we said, you have to build it. Well, they finally agreed they would build it. And we said, now you have to do an end-to-end test. They said, nah, it'll be fine. Well, you know the rest of the story. It was not. The next day we had an ARISS contact and we couldn't do it. But later in that day, we did talk to our ARISS Russia teammates, and they said, don't worry, you can use the ARISS radio system that's in the service module, which is an old Kenwood. But they let us use the old Kenwood. They let the astronauts fly over into the service module to do the contacts until things got solved. So we worked very closely with NASA and ESA and Airbus, and we figured out what the possible causes were and designed tests to troubleshoot the internal cabling just in case there was something on the inside. And we wrote the crew procedures and requested crew time and did all that multiple troubleshooting and said, no, it's not anything that it could possibly be except for that cable. So on March 5th, they had a spacewalk coming up, and they said, if there's time at the end of the spacewalk, we have approved the crew to swap out the new cable and put back the old cable. Well, they ran out of time. They didn't even finish all the other tasks. So it was rescheduled for the next spacewalk, which on March 10th, we did a worldwide news conference to tell everybody what had happened, what we've done, what's going to happen. And on March 13th, the next spacewalk, they disconnected the new Airbus cable, reconnected our original one, and the next day they powered up the radio, and voila! Shortly thereafter, ARISS volunteer Christy made a packet contact. It's like, yes, yes. And so the radio has been operational, working flawlessly ever since, and all's well that ends well, until Airbus says, okay, well, now we are going to have to reroute that cable because not only was ARISS connected to the new cable, but another RF payload was to be as well. So it's not quite the end of the story, but at least for the moment, everything's fine. And I know some of you know about ham TV, which allowed the schools to see the astronauts when they were talking to them. It was wonderful. We had one of the very first use of ham TV was in the United Kingdom. And ARISS told the teachers in the school, there's a possibility that we'll have ham TV running for this contact. But, you know, this is always an experiment. It may not happen. Well, it happened. And we have this classic photo of two of the teachers, hands over their mouths wide open in shock that they could see Tim Peake, which is the astronaut that was handling the contact. Well, it was ESA developed and built by Kaiser Italia, which you can guess was in Italy. And it failed after, I don't even remember how long, maybe a year and a half. Well, we managed to convince NASA to send it back down to Earth. You know, every time you do a launch or a down mass, it costs money. It costs NASA time and money. So they agreed to ship it back to Earth. It splashed down in the Pacific. We got it to Houston. We shipped it to Italy. Ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. And they were shut down due to COVID and in Italy. And finally, they fixed it, and then they were awaiting final tests to be done by them, followed by tests to be done in the United States. So the current status is Kaiser Italia is done with their investigation. The tests are completed, and they will be shipping the unit back, probably at our expense again, very expensive, where we'll have to retest it, recertify it, and verify it. Tons of paperwork, and then find a ride back upstairs. Future stuff, I've only got one small slide in here. There's a bunch of different things, but it's a lot of focus is on Lunar Gateway and on Artemis. And NASA has gone with both things. Lunar Gateway is like the outpost that would be orbiting around the moon. And then, of course, there is actual on the moon possibilities. And NASA's not sure the best thing they're going to go with first. So ARISS has to follow that lead. So we've presented at several NASA utilization and Artemis program boards, and we submitted a proposal, and it's called Amateur Radio Exploration, or ARRX. And it could go either way, gateway or lunar opportunities. We're working with an expert. She has great experience in lunar amateur radio frequency coordination through the Space Frequency Coordination Group. So we've got lots of ideas being kicked around. It's been slow because NASA slowed down their decision making, and so there's no reason really for us to push forward until they move forward. I'm going to go pretty quick through the next couple. I always highlight a couple of schools in the US and also overseas. And my favorite picture here is this artwork on the right-hand side. This is a first grader's artwork of the ISS. I labeled it ISS so you could tell, I mean, he or she, I'm not sure which. Let's see, I've forgotten. No, I don't remember. That she or he did label it ISS, and it says, "We got to hear an astronaut on the ISS. Exciting," which of course is exciting, and very fun. So that I like that a lot. This is a couple of the non-US schools, just great stuff going on. Tells a little bit about their studies, how many people watched, quotes from the teachers, the media. We always do a participation slide. This one shows that we're still waiting on South Dakota. We don't have a South Dakota contact yet. It's terrible, but we keep pushing, and hopefully one of these days we will. 64 other countries. These are the kinds of numbers we get each quarter of the year. Between 3,000 and 8,000 students directly engaged, and that means that they were watching or talking or doing something real time. Indirectly means they watched the contact or did something on a different day. And same thing for educators and general public. This middle piece is an educational peer review article that talked all about ARISS, which, you know, it's always a nice feather in the cap to show to educators. These are just some of the things the kids did. I love this lower right photo, kids dressed up as astronauts at their comm stations. And this one just talks about our social media, all the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, website, newspaper articles, and so on and so forth. Okay, so I think I'm just about on time. Again, thank you for your interest, and we'll see what we can do with questions.
I got a question.
I'll try.
Can you explain what a telebridge contact is?
Sure. Okay, so let's say that you have Boy Scout Jamboree, National Jamboree in Virginia, and there's only 1 or 2 days that possibly could work for having an ARISS contact. But space station is not passing over the Jamboree on those 2 days. If you've ever thought about what the orbits are like, they move up and down the globe. And so what do? You can't accommodate them. But wait, there's the telebridge. So ARISS has a number of radio telebridge stations around the world. And during the Jamboree, one of those stations is going to have an orbit go overhead, and the station's in Italy. So the Italian radio telebridge handles the audio going up and the audio coming down. So you've got the radio station up on the space station, you've got the radio station on the ground in Italy, and you have a link in between that goes to the Jamboree. Some people say, well, how do you get the kids to understand the how amateur radio works? Trying to get my video on here. And one of the requirements that we have for school is an education proposal, and it must have lessons about ham radio and STEM of any kind. So they learn about amateur radio. There's no question about that. And second of all, we've gotten a lot of good media stories where the reporter is enthused about, well, this is really cool. You've got an Italian helping out, and sometimes the moderator might be from Australia. And so the kids are like, wow, that cool guy with the Italian accent. So it works pretty well. And of course, during COVID, if it weren't for telebridges, we would not have had any ARISS contacts because we couldn't have gotten into the schools. Over.
Thank you. We just had one up in Osceola County by Telebridge to Italy.
Yes. Yes, just about all of them have been. The only places that have not had telebridges in the last year and a half are, for instance, you probably remember hearing that Australia had very little COVID. But then when it picked up, they had to go to a telebridge. Japan has had very little COVID, and they have third-party issues. So all theirs are direct contacts.
Thank you.
See if anybody else can come up with something I can't answer.
Raise your hands or ask questions in the chat. We're standing by.
And if somebody would catch the chat for me.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm monitoring the chat. So.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Oscar has a question.
Yes.
Rosalie, thank you very much. Nice presentation. And we have a few contacts from Puerto Rico, thanks to your team and so.
Yes,
What is the opportunities for astronauts to go back to those schools and meet the students? Does that happen?
occasionally it does. You can contact Johnson Space Center once COVID is safe. And there's a place to request astronaut. You can Google NASA Astronaut Appearance Office. NASA Astronaut Appearance Office. And usually you have to find several events. I mean, they're not going to pay for an astronaut to go down and just talk to school. They want to do several events pretty close together. And it really helps if, for instance, let's say the astronaut is from Michigan and the group asking for the appearance is in Michigan because, it's an incentive to go back to Michigan. Or sometimes it could be where the spouse is from or where the astronaut's parents are from. And you can figure that out by going to NASA astronaut biographies. If you Google NASA astronaut biographies, you can find where they're from, where they were born, and information about their spouse.
Thank you. One more question.
Sure.
What about the activities of astronauts? I mean, not only ARISS contact, do you have astronauts that they really enjoy ham radio and they go to the radio and spend time with the talking with people down to earth?
It depends on the astronaut. Some of them are really comfortable on the air and others are not. If they're really new hams, sometimes they're not. As you can imagine, we've heard them say things like, oh, we're going east to west, we're coming up to the California coastline, coming over the ocean, and all of a sudden there's this, and they can't make out a thing. If they're not a contester, they don't know how to say the K7 call sign, go ahead. It depends if it's Doug Wheelock or Mike Fink or Sonny Williams, or there's just certain ones that love to talk. And there's other ones who learn to like it. right now in the space station, it's a national lab. It's like Scripps or Woods Hole or Lawrence Livermore. It's a national lab. So they are paid by companies to do research, and they have 10-hour work days. So sometimes all they want to do, just like you and I might do, is go read a book or listen to music or play the guitar or talk to their family or write letters to their family. So it's like I know some ham friends of mine never want to get on the air. They just like to tinker and build antennas on the workbench while they listen to ham radio. And I feel the same way. Over.
Thank you.
Okay, Barry, there's a comment in the chat there.
Jim, you want to come on and give your comment?
Yeah, it's really much. We have a Boy Scout group here on Long Island in conjunction with the Vanderbilt Planetarium and the Long Island Mobile Amateur Radio Club that was lucky enough to get a slot this coming June 20th to make contact with ARISS, and we're looking forward to it. Looks like it's going to be a telebridge. It works the best. We did one a few years ago with the Great South Bay Club. We had some issues with going direct, but we did get it through. So it's just a comment here. We're really looking forward to it. It's a great program.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kay. Great show tonight, too. Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. And I enjoyed seeing that dog take part in here too.
Oh, yeah.
He's a 2-year-old baby.
Yeah, the other thing, I don't know if you saw the first comment, Oscar's on the Air magazine is in the inside cover of this month's issue, the July-August issue, showing him wiring up HF antenna on the roof.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's really nice. Oscar looking like $1 million. I think he's going to Hollywood.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, folks, we got to live with Oscar. Take it easy. His head gets too big.
Marty has his hand up again.
All right, Marty, take it away.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Rosalie, for the presentation. Do you or does ARISS ever get follow-on feedback from the schools where contacts took place concerning the development of amateur radio clubs or something added to the curriculum? In other words, the long-term impact at a particular school of having had the contact?
Absolutely, yes. Most of them do it beforehand. We had more ham radio clubs at schools this past 6 months than I've ever seen. I think somewhere I have a list of them, but it was more than usual. But sometimes it's afterwards. Sometimes, they tell you, we make them submit an education proposal. It's a lengthy document. They have to say everything they're going to do, including media, and what would happen if the last minute the contact couldn't happen and it was scheduled for the next day, all kinds of things like that. And sometimes you get like 2 months into when they're supposed to be doing things and they're not, especially during COVID days. And we're thinking, oh, I guess they just thought they were going to be able to do these things and they couldn't. But then after the contact, they were so excited. They do everything they said they were going to do afterwards. The main thing that is needed is for a local club to guide them. I'm sure you all figured that out. Most of the time, youth clubs do really well if they have kind of I remember there used to be a Boulder Amateur Radio Club and a Boulder Amateur Radio Club Junior. They call them Bark Juniors and Bark. And Bark made sure that Bark Juniors succeeded, and they went on and on for years. And that's really the magic in there, is the adult club that kind of helps them along.
Very good, thank you. And I assume that having a licensed ham on the faculty helps.
Oh yeah, we don't require it, but some of them get it before the contact. Some of them get it after. We had 3 teachers at Teachers Institute who, let's see, 2 of them got their license just before Teachers Institute, which was after their contact. The third one had already gotten her license before Teachers Institute. So we work hand in glove with Teachers Institute. They talk about ARISS there, and if anybody's interested, they send them to us. And we get the education proposals. One of the questions is, are you interested in a professional development free course you can apply for? So we work together. I'm going to have to head out here pretty soon if I have a last minute question. If you do, ask Carrie to answer.
When I send out, when I send out the email afterwards, the follow-up with the video and all this, I will also put in there the email address to send the questions to and that kind of stuff.
Perfect. Perfect, Dan. Thank you again for having me.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Rosalie.
73.
73. Thanks again.
Okay.
All right. Anybody out there? Hello there, Marty. Do we have any other comments or anything out there?
I think the most important thing we as hams need to do is to commit to follow-up whenever there's a ARISS contact nearby. I've done close to a dozen of them, and only 2, and all of them had great local publicity, and the kids and the teachers, I think the parents were more excited than the kids were, that their kids were actually talking to someone in space. Unfortunately, there was no follow-up. So all of that enthusiasm went down the tubes within a month of the contact. And that's something that we all need to work on to ensure that we get in with STEM and we get in with some teachers and we get some of the kids licensed. One of our schools went ahead and formed their own club, and they were doing great for 2 months. Then summer came and started the next school year came, and the local club decided that they didn't want to help them anymore, and the club just died away. And it's a shame if we're going to put in all of this effort. And it's such a wonderful thing to be able to do. And I think it's fantastic that we can talk to the space station. And I think that's a huge draw to get kids into studying aerospace and studying STEM for their future careers. And we're not doing it. And ARISS is giving us this opportunity. And we're just not doing as much as we could. So that's my comment.
I've attended a couple of those in person as well. And back when I was on the board of ARRL, I noticed by looking at the resulting publicity from the event that they talked all about what happened, but they didn't even mention amateur radio, let alone the league, which was kind of facilitating things at that time. And I was on our local, our league liaison all the time, say, hey, are the press releases that you give them, the sample press releases, need to prominently mention amateur radio, and preferably the local club if they're involved in helping set it up. So one of the things you can do is, offer to preview any press releases concerning the upcoming activity. I'm sure that the stock press releases are better than they used to be, but we should check them to make sure that they adequately present the role of amateur radio, and that without hams, this would not be possible.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Well, it's around the same story, same track, but it's a little bit off. We should do something, everybody here, and pass the word and work and rejuvenize AMSAT. And this type of activities of satellite that really can help us to have even emergency satellite fixing over the continent of the US and for educational purpose and video and digital mode. These kind of things, I don't know why we haven't been able to get it through and put it in service. But this is something that somehow we need to re-energize this old story and put it in education, because it's a feedback loop. You have to put new things and you get new people, and you have to be attractive at the same time. The good thing about the ARISS is definitely the astronauts are there. It's a real astronaut that is talking to you. And remember, Nasrin is a very special person, it's a hero. And that is a model, a role model for everybody who's talking to it. So this is the kind of thing that attract people and students and youth for looking for the future. Back to you, Dan.
All right, appreciate that, Oscar. Are there any more comments? Nothing? Well, I want to ask Shar how she's doing because I haven't heard lately. How you doing, Shar?
I'm doing fine. We had some really hot weather here, and we had some bad weather in Wisconsin in our southern counties where we had a tornado that went down. But otherwise, we're doing pretty good here.
Well, good. Good. That's great. That sounds great. You're looking good.
Good.
You muted yourself there, Shar. And I see we have Jean from Idaho. Jean is very into STEM and things of that nature. Did you see any ties that could be done there, Jean?
Did I see any what?
Oh, I was talking to Jean in Idaho. He's very strong into STEM, and I was asking if he saw any way to do the ties there.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, I'm familiar with STEM. I'm a former teacher also, but I'm not in science at all. But I know the schools are pretty, pretty active with that around here.
Okay, Jean, you want to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to speak up there, Jean?
Let me see. Yeah, we've been active. We had a contact with the ISS on Labor Day weekend of 2019. And prior to that, we had a very active program with the students. We're very fortunate here. It was a Galileo STEM Academy, which is not a charter school. It's part of the school district, but it's a school of choice. And they have just a little bit under 800 students. Parents have to write something that gets the kid in, but they always oversubscribe. Bottom line is, the very name conveys what's going on. So when we hams went in to help them make the contact, they were already had a very active STEM program. So we were very careful not to oversell ham radio, but we supplemented with it. And two of our teachers, Rosalie's kind of mentioned it on the side there, went back and went through the wireless course. And at the end, they got their ham tickets. So we have on the faculty 2 hams. This continued on, the club continued, and it's always tied in closely with STEM. And I know Dan knows, but just recently, in fact, a couple of weeks ago, we had submitted a proposal to greatly expand this and try to get into the other schools. We submitted a proposal to the ARRDC and Communications, and they awarded us $30,000 to do what we said we were going to do. 9 months program. We're going to build a system. We're going to try to become, we will have a system that's capable of telebridge. But the big thing is a scheme to get into some of these schools that really don't have much of a STEM program. Bottom line is, from what Dan says, we are really into the STEM around here. And it's been a great pleasure working with the faculty at Galileo STEM Academy. Does that answer your question, Dan?
It certainly does, Gene. I appreciate that. We haven't had a ham fest for a couple of years because of the COVID. The last time we did, STEM was the center of attention for that, so to speak, the theme. And I think this next go around, next spring, hopefully we'll be able to have another ham fest here. And by that time, Gene should have his stuff up and at least partly going. And we'll see what we can do to make it even a bigger scene. So thanks, Eugene, for everything you're doing for us. Okay, are there any other questions or answers or whatever out there? quiet bunch. All right, I was trying to stretch it out here a little bit, make sure everybody had a chance to talk. I will wrap this up. I'll say 73s, everyone for now. Again, we'll be seeing a lot of you people tomorrow and next week. So we'll carry on here.
Thank you all for coming. Good night.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. 73s.